Our scripture reading today, it's a little bit of a doozy, but that's okay. It's good. There's a beauty in listening to the Word and reading the Word out loud. So I want you to do your best as I ask you every week to, even if need be, close your eyes and take in what is trying to be communicated here in John. We have two passages, one in John 15 and one John 17. I encourage you to listen and try to ingest it as much as you can. This is what John 15, starting in verse 1, reads. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Every branch that bears fruit he prunes to make it bear more fruit. You have already been cleansed by the word I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from the Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. I am giving you these commands, so that you may love one another. John 17, 20 through 23 reads, I ask not only on behalf of these, but also on behalf of those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one. As you, Father, are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given them, so that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me, that they may become completely one, so that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Beautiful. Seems like a lot of repetition there. He really hitting home the point. I want them to be one, and he says it kind of over and over again, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Dan, it's good to see you back.
Good to be back.
Little colder weather, but yeah, we're making it. Good to see the Flemings and the Gowls back too. Everybody is still in one piece from skiing. That's good to see too. I meant to say all these things at the beginning, and then they just hit me in the middle of it all. I look up and I see your smiling faces. And anyway, well, this is the last sermon that I'm going to be preaching in the series. The best sermon that I've ever preached. Still a unparalleled graphic that they chose. So it's going to be the last installment in the series, the best sermon I've ever preached. So after today, sadly, you're only going to get subpar sermons. So sorry about that. That's a joke. I don't think the best sermons are going to be behind me, but this last Sunday of the series is also, liturgically speaking, this is Transfiguration Sunday. So, Jesus goes up onto the mountain, brings some of his disciples, and he meets Moses and Elijah there, all people that have seen the glory of God on Mount Sinai. Or there was another name of the mountain, depending on what transcript you're reading. But they all go up there, they see the glory of God, and this is important for the Jewish people. And this is really the moment where Jesus is transfigured, not necessarily for his own benefit, but to be witnessed as someone who is on par with the great prophets of old, with Moses, with Elijah. And this is really important because after coming down from this mountain, Jesus starts the road to the cross. This is where the road to Golgotha leads, and it's coming down from this mountain. You would almost say, if this were a film, he would be entering the dark night of the soul. And so this is really interesting, and we're going to look at it today. But as you know, we've got Ash Wednesday coming up this week, and what that means is that today, liturgically, we stand at a threshold. We're about to begin the season of Lent. Now, Transfiguration Sunday is kind of strange, right? It's bright. Jesus' face shines. The disciples, they glimpse at glory. And for just a moment, the veil is pulled back, and they see who Jesus truly is. He's not just a teacher. He's not just a rabbi. He's not just a friend. But they see him radiant with divine life. And then we go down the mountain, right? We just talked about that. That's the rhythm. We don't stay in the light forever. We don't stay on the mountaintop experience forever. We don't build tents like they offer to do on top of the mountain. We don't freeze in the moment. We necessarily have to descend. And Ash Wednesday, this Wednesday, begins that descent. On Wednesday, we will mark ourselves with ashes, not as a sign of shame necessarily, not as spiritual theatrics, but as honesty, right? Remember that you are dust. Remember that you are dust. It's the church's way of saying, remember that you're finite. You're fragile. We're not self-sustaining. We need one another and we need God. And that's not bad news. It's a form of clarity. It's a form of dependence wherein love grows from that. From Ash Wednesday until Easter, we follow Jesus intentionally towards Jerusalem, towards surrender, towards vulnerability, towards the cross. So Lent, which is the 40-day season the church sets aside to prepare for Easter, it's often reflective. It anticipates the oncoming suffering of Jesus, right? It's not about pretending that we're miserable, per se. I know sometimes it gets a bad rap. But it's about acknowledging and anticipating the suffering that is to come. It's about refusing to skip ahead to the resurrection every single week. Refusing to skip ahead to the joy and the resurrection, and this is a wonderful thing. And Christianity is all about smiles and happiness and wealth and private jets. And, well, if you're watching TBN, that's what you think it is. But Lent reminds us that Christ is there to empathize with us through every part of life, the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs. And Transfiguration Sunday is the moment that we kick all of this off. It is the mountaintop experience, the highest high before the road to Golgotha. So just for a couple minutes, I want to take some principles from the scriptures that we just read, and I want to create a bridge that hopefully helps transition us into the season of Lent. Now, we've been talking about weakness, about vulnerability, love. We've been talking about our motivations, about having inner honesty, a willingness to be transparent, to have self-reflection. And these things are extremely important, yes. And in many ways, they are things that are required to change for the better. They're required for spiritual maturity or spiritual progress, right? That's great. We can know how to do things. That's a wonderful thing. We can know the mechanisms for progress. That's great. Those things are necessary. But there's a small asterisk on it all. And I think that this is where we get hung up. And by we, I mean everyone in the entire world that has ever tried to do anything at all. Okay? We understand a lot of things. We're capable. We have the internet. We can understand a lot of things. You can watch a YouTube video about anything. We can see how things get done. We can even prepare. We can think through it. We can talk through it. We can come to a consensus. But when the rubber hits the road, the most difficult thing to do is to motivate ourselves to actually do the thing. What compels us? What moves us forward? What motivates us? Is it heaven? The promise of a paradise? The ultimate eternal vacation? Is that why we try to become better people? To be rewarded? Or maybe it's hell, right? We want to avoid the ultimate eternal punishment. Is that why we do it? To avoid punishment? And I would say that those are two main factors that have pushed people along for centuries, for millennia. And before I get into this, what I'm trying to say is that line of thinking is almost totally absent from the New Testament. Now, there are little spurts here and there. I'm trying to say that the line of thinking is totally absent from the writings in the New Testament. Jesus, yes, he does talk about rewards, and he does talk about punishments, but contrary to what most people think Christianity is about, that's not actually the central message of what's being pushed. And it's kind of silly, actually, that we've turned it into that. I say we, I mean the last 2,000 years of people. It's kind of silly that we've turned it into that. I mean, imagine if that's how all of your relationships were in life. This hopefully will show you that we blow it out of proportion. Imagine if that's how we interacted with people, if that's all life played out for us, if every interaction with every person was reduced to a series of moral judgments, and that's how you knew everybody. There would be no joking. There would be no vulnerability. There would be no mourning. There would be no contentment. There would be no peace. Every conversation was just a calculation. Are you in the right or are you in the wrong? Imagine that. And maybe you guys are thinking of somebody that you have a relationship with where it's like that, but don't say their name out loud. You'd say, man, that would make me anxious. That would not be a very fulfilling relationship, but somehow that's what we've reduced faith to for generations on generations of people. But believe it or not, this doesn't seem to be the way that Jesus actually motivates people. He doesn't say, abide in me so that you can secure a place in heaven. Nor does he say, love one another so that you can avoid eternal conscious torment in hell. Instead, he speaks in relational language. He speaks about abiding. He speaks about friendship, about love that originates in the Father and flows outward. He speaks about being one, not simply behaving correctly. The motivation that he presents is not a future reward, nor is it a future threat, but it is participation in something that is already alive, something that is already present. Punishments and rewards are outliers, kind of like for kids, right? I know very little about parenting, but it's become apparent to me that it can't just be an endless sequence of punishments and rewards. That's not going to work out well. Most of it seems to be just time that I spend with them. Laughing when they fart, applauding them when they show you a trick that they learned, and he's just spinning around in a circle or doing a somersault. Eating dinner with them, putting them down to bed. All these things, all these interactions, they're not rewards. They're not punishments, right? They're simply just being with them. Or as our passage of Scripture puts it, abiding with them. Or abiding together in a shared life within the nucleus of the family. Okay, now just for hypothetical purposes, let's say that's the goal. Not eternal reward, not eternal punishment, but let's say abiding with one another is the goal. To abide with God in the same way that we want to abide with our kids or grandkids or friends or loved ones. Whether we're all going on vacation together and it'll be fun, or maybe we're all gathered together after a funeral to support one another. Let's say that's actually what's fulfilling and needed. What if it's the contentment, the consistency, the stability of oneness, togetherness? And I think that's actually what we all want. When we think about spending time with family, we're not just thinking about perpetual rewards, We just want to be with him. That's the simplicity of it. So let's say that's actually what is needed. That's what we want, whether we know it or not. That's what Christ wants for you, interestingly enough. That's what he prayed for you, for us. Anyone who reads his word, he literally prayed for you. This is literally what he says. He says, I ask not only on behalf of these, he's talking to his immediate disciples that are before him, he's regarding them, but also on behalf of those who will believe in me through their words. Who is that? Well, we're reading their words, aren't we? The beautiful thing is Jesus, in anticipation, looks 2,000 years into the future to where you sit right now. And he prays for you. And he prays for me. And what does he pray? That they may all be one. Well, what does that mean? That's a big question. That they may all be one. Okay, that's what Jesus is talking about. He names explicitly and clearly the most core desire that we all have. That's what I think it means. To have a oneness, a togetherness, to be known. And we talked about that in the first sermon. To be seen. This is what Jesus wanted for us more than anything. Okay, cool. If that's the goal, what would it take to motivate us toward that? Because, that's kind of where things get a little sticky. Right? We can say, yeah, that's the goal. That would be nice if we all had a oneness and a togetherness and we all acted like one big family and we all had God's perspective and saw even our enemies as brothers and sisters and we had a nice, genuine, compelling love and a peace. Right? That sounds wonderful. But there still stands a huge gap between what is ideal and what is real. The problem is that we can no longer use fear as a motivation when we take that perspective. We can't use hell to kick us in the butt. We also can't dangle the promise of heaven in front of people like a little carrot on a stick. So what would it take? Because this is what we're striving for here and now, not just some future gratification. This is where things get hard, so everybody hold on to your pews. You know what it takes? It takes being fed up with living a loveless life. When the cushiness and the comforts of life are no longer capable of dulling our ever so apparent emptiness. This is why the message of Jesus is most effective to whom? To the poor in spirit, to the mourning and the meek, to those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, because they cannot escape its absence, to the weary, to the heavy laden, to the sick and the sinner, to the outcast, to the overlooked, to the captive and the burdened, to those whose comforts have failed them, whose illusions have worn thin, and who no longer have enough distance between themselves and the lovelessness of the world to pretend that everything is fine. And how much richer am I than the rich young ruler? It is not that wealth is inherently a sin and that poverty is a virtue. It is that wealth can purchase distractions that keep us insulated from our own emptiness. Wealth can soften the blow. It can create enough noise, enough comfort, enough convenience to keep us from ever having to sit still long enough to feel how loveless our lives have become. The tragedy of the rich young ruler is not that he has money, it's that he has just enough comfort to walk away unchanged. And that is the danger for us all, who even the poor among us are richer than most of the world. Because when life is relatively stable, when the bills are paid, when the fridge is full, when the schedule is busy, when the entertainment is endless, it becomes very easy to avoid a deeper ache that exists within us, one that the road to the cross hopefully elicits within our souls. It becomes becomes very easy to never actually hunger or thirst for righteousness because we are constantly numbing ourselves with something else. And so the message of Jesus, the invitation to abide, to be one, to surrender, to love, it can sound interesting, even admirable, but oftentimes it does not sound urgent to us. But when the comforts of life wear thin, when the distractions fail, when the noise can no longer drown out the silence, when love has grown cold and we can feel it in our homes, in our politics, in our churches, in our own hearts, that is when the message of Christ becomes not just compelling, but necessary. And that is why Lent matters for us. Because Lent gently removes some of that cushioning. It transforms and transfigures our perspective about the world. It kicks our butts out of our comforts. It invites us to sit with what is actually there. It invites us to notice places where we have substituted comfort for communion, distraction for depth, activity for abiding. It does not threaten us with hell. It does not bribe us with heaven. It simply asks us to be honest enough to admit that apart from the vine, we wither. And once we know that, not intellectually, but existentially, then abiding no longer is a command that we resent, but it becomes the only thing that truly makes sense. That's all I got. Amen. There's an anticipation this week for Ash Wednesday. And it should not be something that we shame ourselves for, but it should be a moment where we intentionally put upon ourselves spiritual sobriety, where we ask ourselves to stop looking inward, as we often do. I'm preaching to myself here. And it asks us to remove those comforts and hopefully help us look outward. So as you go throughout this week, I would encourage you to pay attention to what insulates you. Notice what you reach for when you feel restless, when you feel empty. Notice the distractions. Notice those comforts. Notice the noise that keeps you from sitting quietly with your own hunger for love, for your own desire for communion. And instead of immediately filling the space, try sitting in it just for a minute. Try to sit in the silence of a world that is so constantly inundating us with endless noise. Try bringing that restlessness to God rather than covering it up. If Lent is about letting the cushioning thin out a little, then this week can hopefully be a gentle beginning for the next couple of weeks. As we prepare for Ash Wednesday, consider what you might need to release, what illusion has worn thin, what part of you is tired of pretending that everything is fine. The ashes are not a sign of shame, they are a sign of honesty. And honesty is the ground where abiding begins. Will you stand? Will you think about these things?